chosen not to confront your own shit and decided to just hand it off, pass the buck down to the next generation to say, you deal with it now, as much as you're upset with your mom or your dad or whatever thing in society that you're blaming your traumas and your problems and your reason why you can't be happy or successful or fulfilled or whatever it is, you're choosing not to make peace with that and forgive and to heal so that your kid, your prodigy, your legacy doesn't have to solve that problem. Can you wave? Wave to all your friends. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of Naked Sunday. I'm your host, Caleb Nelson. And for those of you who are watching, I highly recommend that you turn on the camera, or not the camera, what is it? Look at the screen, whether it's on your phone or on your computer or whatever it is that you're listening / watching on right now, so you can see my ever so darling little co-host, my 10-month-old daughter, little Remy Lou Nelson, joining us here. She'll be here often on these episodes, unless Mother Dearest decides to hang on to her for the day while we're recording. Thanks for tuning in today. This is our first time recording since she's been born. This has mostly been on me. And today we're going to essentially reflect on, what dare I say, the past 10-ish months since I've done an episode. And yeah, we're going to just have some fun. Today it's going to be very Naked Sunday-ish. Raw, unfiltered, just stream of consciousness. I don't got any particular plan. I just want to share some lessons and some reflections. More or less, this is the reboot / relaunch of the Naked Sunday podcast. And I think it comes as no surprise. I'm coming out of the initial phases of embracing dad mode, the dad life in my life. And it'd be weird if it didn't change me. I think it's weird for anybody who's not changed by the idea of becoming a parent or taking on any new responsibility in your life. And whenever you go through big changes and shifts like that, everything that you do, I think, gets called into question. At least I know it does for me, and especially since Naked Sunday has been a powerful reflective process for me, a powerful experience in finding my own voice, in learning how to share and connect with other people in my community, in the world. I've talked to people all over the world at this point. But also in thinking about what is the point and the purpose of all of this, and what am I reconnecting to with why I even start in the first place. So I guess let's start with that. That's probably been one of the more challenging things during all of this, in that towards the end of my wife's pregnancy, right before she gave birth, I was definitely feeling a lot of pressure around recording episodes. And to me, it was starting to become very rigid. And in my head and in my heart, it felt a lot of like, I have to. I was losing this sense of a pull towards recording and having guests and having conversations. It started feeling more like a job. And there was a lot of weight behind it. I was starting to think about having to make it so formal and so structured, and it had to have all these other stipulations behind it. And as I look back now, and it took me probably till last month to start really reflecting on how there's a question that my friend asked at our weekly boys' night where we all get together and have dinner together, that kind of repurposed all this, or brought it to light, I should say. And I realized I was putting all these undue expectations. I had lost sight of why did I start this in the first place. And I guess I'll hit that part first. So at the boys' night, we do a weekly question, something that's reflective, meditative, something that's designed for all of us to open up and share. When we go around the room, it's just the three or sometimes four of us, sometimes five of us if we have a guest or something like that. And we just go around the table at the end of our meal, and we open up and we share about our reflections. And so my friend Donald, shout out Donald if you're listening, uh, he's the one who comes up with the questions every week. And you tell him, Remy. The question of the week was, what do you do for yourself? Yeah, apparently that you want to have your binky to yourself. That's what it is, Remy. And in typical fashion, I usually go first, but to me, I took a pause and my answer immediately was the podcast, which is kind of bizarre considering the fact that I hadn't done one in 9 months at that point. And it reminded me as I started to share as to why that was the answers. It was something that I started purely because I had lost sight or lost perspective on what brought me joy in my life, whatever it was, 5 years ago, when I was at peak burnout stage at the end of my second gym and kind of wandering off eventually into the pandemic and trying to figure out where I wanted to go with my career and where I wanted to take my coaching practice and how all that stuff. But one of the reflections, and this was part of my weekly ritual of the Naked Sunday thing, where I would just sit with my own thoughts and deal with that, is I realized I didn't know what I did for fun. What did I do just for the joy of it? I had lost sight of that. And as I reflected a little more, one of the things that came up was I just like to share a meal with somebody. And when I dug a little deeper, why was that? It was because it was almost like this built-in excuse to have uninterrupted conversation, an opportunity to actually share and get to know people that are sitting across from me, or to get to connect with the people that I already love even more on a deeper level. Especially during it being during the pandemic, uh, that kind of ease of connectivity, right? Going out for dinner, whatever it was, lunch, was not uh, as easily accessible. So the natural next question is, well, what if we just remove the meal? And that's what it was. Let's just have the conversation. Just start asking the questions and start having the connection that you say you want in the first place. You don't need to Trojan horse it by having to have a meal to be able to just get to the conversation. Just go have the conversation. And that's how ultimately, beyond just the initial couple of sessions, which was a very healing process with my first business partner and friend. If anybody listens to his first, I don't know, 10 episodes, something like that, he helped me launch the thing. But as I stick, you say it, but as I took over and it just became solely my own thing, the reflection became around like this is just mine, and why am I going to keep going? I just like to talking to people. I just like to get to know people. I like to hear their stories. So as I'm coming back to this right now, it's with this renewed vigor of just I want to connect and share and open up with people and come back to that. I have this little saying, in the end, go back to the beginning. Because usually that, usually when we get stuck, we're always lost in the weeds of just new expectations, new things that are just inconsequential. And we lose sight of the purpose and the purity of why we're doing it in the first place. So that's where I came back to with all of this, with some more renewed inspiration and motivation behind it. And that, especially through my coaching practice and with clients that I've served, especially during this time now that I've become a father, what's important to me is that there's a place for my daughter and whomever else, if we have another kid or if she has kids one day herself, that my family, her, and whomever else, maybe some days my wife, if she wants to go listen to me talk even more, but we already know that that's not the reality. She doesn't want to tune in and listen to me talk even more than that. Uh, if I was to die, if there was something to happen to me, there would be a place for my family members to go, the people that I love, the people that maybe look to me for guidance or whatever it is, to be able to go hear some of the things that I've gone through, to have some conversations with people that I admire or I'm curious about or I want to learn something about their life, to hear their lessons. There'd be a place where they can go, that they can get access to the information or the insight, or just maybe even just hearing my voice. I don't know that they care enough to hear that they can go and listen to somebody who wants nothing from them. I'm not trying to pull one over on them, not trying to get anything out of it. It's like, especially if I'm dead, it's just for you. It's simply for your own benefit. It's not for my benefit, other than knowing that I maybe could help you through a period of your life, right, Remy? I could help you through a period of your life by sharing some of my lessons on a solo episode or even just in conversation or hearing other lessons from other people so that we can minimize any unnecessary suffering in the lives of my loved ones. So there's that. Plus, I just want my daughter and my family members to know like these kinds of conversations can happen. I think we live in a world where everything is so surface level. Everything is just, how's the weather? And now it's the score, what's the score on the ball game? Or what's like those types of things. And yeah, there's value to having small talk and those types of things. But if we never venture to go have, you tell them, if we never venture to go have a real conversation, if we never really try and be open and honest about asking these types of questions or these types of reflections, you're so cute, yes, then we don't necessarily know that it's possible or that it can be even normal. And yeah, maybe sometimes these things can feel a little heavy, but it doesn't always have to be. And part of what I'm enjoying about the fact that I just have my daughter here with me right now, or when she's been on coaching sessions, in the background or sitting in my lap, drinking a bottle of milk or passing out, whatever, it's now normalized. If there's anything I miss about the gym right now that we had, and that was something really cool that I watched my friend and second business partner. He had his two little boys. They would come in and they would just see all this health and wellness, people just being able to interact in a space that was all centered around and taking care of your body and nurturing your health and well-being. And there's a beautiful community around it. That was completely normalized. That was not abstract. It was not strange to take care of yourself and then also in turn being able to take care of others. And I want that same kind of concept to be modeled for my daughter and for the rest of my family. So those are some of the back thoughts and stories around all of what's coming back with the purpose and perspective around uh, Naked Sunday, the podcast, and any other content that I put out there. It has very little to do with me. It's more for like the people that I love, and that's about it. It's trying to put things into a box of what it has to be business wise and all that kind of stuff. I've learned only pushes me further and further away from doing the things that actually create any value for people, which ironically creates more value for people and then maybe leads to like more businessy things. So that's always that strange paradox that floats through my mind. It's a great reminder to pursue purpose and delivering value than to pursue things like just money for the sake of money. So with that, today is going to be more of a full reflection around some lessons since I've become a father and what it's been like, especially since I'm the primary caretaker throughout the week to this beautiful little gem. I think as any parent can attest, it is it's a journey and it will completely change you for the better, I think, if you allow it. Um, and it was only in the past couple weeks that I realized that deep down I was still experiencing a level of ego death. And this is important to remember in that half of the things I coach people on is about identity and removing the attachments we have from that because it tends to be exactly what is limiting us from the growth and the success we want, whether it's in our business, our marriage, and our own health, or all three at the same time, essentially. And especially of late, I was realizing, wow, I was still holding, and it still flares up when I'm having a rough day, but I was holding a lot of my identity around what I do, professionally speaking. I've been holding my value around that, whether it's, certain like a rate I charge or the title of whatever I do, whatever somebody sees me as. And I was feeling very lost around those things because sometimes it's very hard to pinpoint how and what this type of coaching or mentorship relationship ultimately is. And as opposed to just, I am just myself, and that's who I am. But especially as this role, this very demanding role of father to a beautiful kid that I love her dearly, with that role taking such a primary space in my day-to-day life because there's no time off. And during the day, I had created plenty of space with my business and whatnot to be able to still be a very present father because it's one thing that's one thing I knew I you think so? Yeah. You just want to make sure you're front and center on the show, huh? Yes, I don't blame you. You're more entertaining than daddy. Um, one of the big things that I knew 5 years ago when this whole, we'll call it spiritual journey started was that I knew that I wanted to be very present for her and for any kids that my wife and I have. So lo and behold, time freedom was a very important thing for me to create and to maintain over this time. Well, got it, have it, beautiful. And with that, during all this time, there's no time freedom because she fills the time freedom. She is the she is the one that is ever present throughout the entire day. And that's something that has to be accounted for. And with that, there's been a lot of just hanging out, not always like super exciting things, just whether, between changing diapers and making sure she has a bottle or being fed or whatever it is, and rolling around and playing for a little bit of nap times. There's a lot of time where it's just hanging with her. And far be it for me to say, I come to realize like this has been a really powerful mirror because I've had to sit and deal with myself with sometimes a screaming, crying baby, which I happen to be pretty sensitive to sounds. I don't like loud noises. People used to make fun of me just because I would always keep the music down at the gym and whatnot. I like it chill. But sometimes she's crying or screaming. I can't take a shower or bath or whatever it is without having just a wailing child disturbing the peace and wanting full attention, whatever. And and in that, knowing like, hey, you can't react. It's a baby. It's a kid who just is literally wanting attention and getting attention only the way she knows how, or she's sad, or she's hungry, or whatever. She's communicating with only the tools that's available to her. And I'm the one who's responsible for her health and well-being and her care and making sure she's safe. So with that, a lot of it is just how do you sit still with yourself? And I still ultimately realized like I was just facing myself all the time. And it has brought me more than I thought I thought I had already faced a lot of these things, but go figure you have new successes because having a kid is definitely a success. It's something I've wanted. I wanted to be a dad. It certainly has brought me face to face with deeper and darker insecurities and self-limiting beliefs that I didn't even realize were there to that level. People are gonna have a very interesting audio today. Yeah. Every now and then you have your little intermission sounds. Um, specifically about the past 4 to 6 weeks, it was kind of like the entire wave of it all. So there was this she had hit a sleep regression, started teething. I hurt my back. She got sick. I had hurt my back so bad, like I was laid up for an entire week, just like on the couch, but still having to hold on to her and make sure she was functioning and whatever, and still fed and do all those things. She was sick. She had the flu, and a couple weeks before that, she had COVID and the flu. Um, my wife was going through some big changes with work, so there's lots of stressors there. There's a couple hiccups with work stuff. So it was just all the compounding stress of life, and then still being required to show up, love my kid, make sure she's taken care of, just be consistent and not like blow everything up just because I'm not having a day, just because I was not feeling great in my body. I was feeling sick. I was feeling run down, burnt out, what have you, not feeling great in my body. And all the different insecurities were all popping back up. And I think that that was super important and super valuable uh, to experience because one of the things, and this is little secret that I've never really talked about with people is like, especially at the gym, when people would tell me they were hurting on a certain part of their body, I was like, cool, that's going to be where my line of questioning goes. It gets into things like chakras and where you hold pain on your body and this and that, which for some people sounds a little bit woo woo, but especially like lower back and whatnot. Like whenever I'm going through big changes in my life, for whatever reason, my back always likes to go out. And it has to do a lot with like foundational stability and feeling safe and things of that nature. And that's exactly what I was going through my life. I was going through this big identity shift. I had not fully embraced it or confronted it or sat with it long enough to allow myself some grace and some space to embrace this role fully. As much as I was doing the things in my head and in my heart, there was still this clinging to the past, this clinging to the old identity, clinging to the old relationship I had with myself. And inevitably, in order to make space for the relationship I want to have with myself going forward, but not least of which relationship I want to make sure I espouse with my kid, with my wife, with my friends, with my family, you have to let go of that. And the more I talk about these types of things, the letting go of old identities is often what I realize is that it's one we avoid it because often it means we need to continue to look towards the end of our life, towards death, which is of course a scary thing for many, if not all of us. Um, and it gets you to reconsider what are you doing with your life? Why are you doing the things you're doing? What do you value yourself for? How do you want to be valued? Who are you including in your life? What are you making space for? And all those things came up over the past 4, 6, 8 weeks. Not that it wasn't happening beforehand, but it was kind of like the initial little itches. And as I'm saying this out loud and I'm processing this on the fly, I realized that those first, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, I had put most of my energy into take care of everyone else, namely my wife, because she was going through a lot of change. She came back from her maternity leave and then almost immediately was then moved into an acting principal role. So she put on not only this new hat of mom, but then also how do I grapple with this next leveling up as a leader in a school or in her career. So she was grappling with those things and also still maintaining her current role. Also, how does she navigate a marriage as well as all these challenges are happening? Um, and so I look back now and I'm like, oh, okay, I definitely, and this has kind of been my MO throughout my life, is that make sure that she's okay because I need to make sure she's healthy enough. She's not getting sick. I don't want her burning out because at the end of the day, Remy wants mommy, especially once she wants food or whatever it is. Like there's just difference between the two of us and it is what it is. And I wanted to make sure she was okay. And then of course, obviously make sure my daughter is okay. Is she healthy? Is she happy? Were we doing the things there? Learning how to navigate that schedule is special in and of itself. So I'm realizing it took roughly what 7, 8 months for me to start to realize like, let me start to deal with me and my stuff and make space for that. And I realized that's a delay that I was grappling with. Um, so thanks for just listening to me through that process, everybody. um, with all that said, I think some of the most valuable things that I've taken from this time was the appreciation I have for for like the relationships that I had put in place beforehand. This is uh, I won't say it, cautionary tale. That's not the right word. This is a suggestion that I would make for anybody who was wanting to have kids and to start a family and whatnot. Getting your friend group and getting some routines around connection outside of the family and having whether it's mentors or confidants or therapy or coach or whatever it is, having those systems in place and having your routines in place for that, for me, was a godsend. So I already mentioned that boys' night, that once a week boys' night, where these are friends that, Two of them are fathers themselves. They both have two kids. Another friend, he's been a dear friend for a long time. They're very grounded, thoughtful individuals. There is no judgment at this dinner. It's just a good hang. We can talk about whatever we want to. We can get anything out on the table. Everybody can participate in helping and hold space for that. For me, that was my little reprieve every week, that one little thing where I was like, okay, during this time where maybe my creativity and all those types of things are not firing on all cylinders, this is my time to just recharge, to feel like I belong, to feel connected, to feel like I don't have to take care of everybody, to just be part of my group. So that was super helpful. I've also been very fortunate to have varieties of mentors and friends that hold space for me and go out of their way to make sure that they're looking out for me. And that's been incredibly valuable. Um, and one of the reflections I've had during this time is, if I didn't have some of those things, I had not been so intentional about the relationships I was bringing into my life, both personally and professionally, this season would have been much harder to navigate. And I think I would have gotten knocked really far off track had I not had just some of these frameworks in place to keep the rails on. And this is coming from somebody that quote unquote knows these things and coaches people on this stuff. I am not immune from the roller coaster of life. Stuff will happen. And that's why I'm sharing this. And as, like I said, cautionary tale, but maybe cautionary tale is not the right word. It's more like, here is some wisdom that I've learned over the years. It's the preventative. I'm going to use the word health right now because I can't think of a better one, but this was preventative health on a very grand scale: relational, business, career, and physical. Now, I wasn't the most physically healthy throughout all this, uh, namely because sleep has been at a premium. So I had to meet myself where I'm at when it comes to how hard I would work out, especially since I hurt my back and a couple of those things. There were some limitations around that. Now, that doesn't mean I did nothing, but it was about prioritizing the things that I needed and then showing myself some grace when I wasn't perfect. Still working and endeavoring to do the best that I could, whether it's trying to keep certain foods in the house, being more mindful of the types of foods that you're choosing, being able to go for walks and choosing some form of movement as opposed to just zero, things of that nature. Um, but on a grand scale, having the right people in my life to remind me, to just nudge me back on course, or sometimes to just remind me, like, hey, you're doing a good job, because it can get real lonely, especially when you got a kid screaming in your face. There's no like positive validation to tell you you're doing a good job. It's just like, sit and take it and, now change my diaper and whatever all day long. Um, so it's hard to get a metric on, like, hey, am I doing a good job at this thing? Because I want to do a good job. I want to be a good dad. But I tend to be a very verbal processor, and I like that type of discourse. She doesn't have the language skills or the communication skills on of that level to like give me validation, and that's not her job. It's my job to like get myself straight. So with that, I think piggybacking off that, one of the beautiful gifts I've had through all of this is so much empathy for specifically a lot of like my stay-at-home moms that I've worked with, or the single moms that I've worked with over the years who got their businesses and whatnot. How somebody navigated that without a supportive partner is like, that's beyond me. It's crazy to think the things we can do. Um, but I've joked, and it's not so much a joke, but even like I'm super glad that during all my times with the gyms and whatnot, I always did my best to be as empathetic and understanding to all the moms that were coming in, because if I hadn't been, man, I think the karmic debt I would be paying right now would be brutal. Um, and I'm so super grateful that so many of the parents that I worked with throughout the years took the time to share their wisdom, to share their experiences, and to essentially teach me some of the pitfalls that I could at least prepare for, or at least minimize some of the downside. And to the best of my ability, we did that. And a lot of it came around to the relationships. Who did I have in my corner? I was so grateful that over the years of patching up relationships with my family and whatnot, they've all been so loving and so caring and so eager to support and show up, and we've like the baby has become the magnet, the one who like brings us all together, which is such a rewarding and enriching experience as her father, because it's like there's nothing more beautiful and more exciting than this. Is something I learned about myself, is that have experienced such like blissful, intense joy just watching Remy be loved by whether it's my siblings or my parents or my wife's family. Like that it has nothing to do with me. But I have a friend who told me that there's in essence also something that has to do with me, because it took me to nurture the relationships and of course, yeah, provide a certain amount of DNA to the equation so that the baby can be born, right? But to be able to bear witness to that kind of love without it being about me receiving love, I could feel joy and love and happiness through that. I don't know where I was going with that part of the reflection, but that's been one of the more unexpected joys and happy feelings I've had in all of it. What else have I got here? Yeah, I think that if there's anything for people to take away from today, is to be intentional. I've heard of a few people who've just gotten pregnant of late, and they're just kind of like, whatever. I can appreciate people's whimsical nature about things. And they're like, oh, we'll just figure it out. But I've seen of quite a few people where they're like in denial about what's about to happen. And more in a way of like, I see them avoiding realizing like it's not about them. I think a lot of people have gone through life. It's like having a kid is just another thing to check off the box on their American dream, as opposed to really considering what is the purpose of being a parent. And that's something I sat with probably for the 3 or 4 years leading up to when my wife got pregnant. I was like, what's the role? What is my purpose as the father? That often it really comes down to is that creating a productive, wholesome member of society and preparing my child to be able to do that. Which ultimately it's not about me. It's not about, wow, I have this new kid who's in some ways that if you look at it, it would be akin to just like, oh, here's my degree that's on the wall, or the trophy in the trophy case. Like that's so self-aggrandizing, and it makes the entire relationship all about what you're getting out of it, the accolades or the acknowledgement or whatever. It's not supposed to be about you. It's about what are you going to bestow and how are you going to prepare them, which ultimately means like you're going to have to discipline, you're going to have to nurture, you're going to have to choose some things. You have to choose to forego some things that were all about you, the selfish things that you wanted, to have a more meaningful relationship. So I think facing that, and some people just stay in denial of it. I've witnessed that, and hell, as somebody who likes to think they embrace these types of things, it was even tough for me. I'm still kind of coming out of the wave of it roughly, but I see a lot of people just push that to the side and not diligently face that head on. It's coming. The insecurities, the fears, the sleepless nights, like when you have low energy and you're cranky or you're having a rough day and it all stacks on top of each other, it's coming. And the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a position where, because of all those life factors, you do something that you'll really regret, that imprints pretty nasty legacy on your kid. Everybody talks about generational trauma right now. Well, great. Those are the moments, if you're unintentional, you pass that nonsense forward. You've chosen not to confront your own shit and decided to just hand it off, pass the buck down to the next generation to say, you deal with it now. As much as you're upset with your mom or your dad or whatever thing in society that you're blaming your traumas and your problems and your reason why you can't be happy or successful or fulfilled or whatever it is, you're choosing not to make peace with that and forgive and to heal so that your kid, your prodigy, your legacy doesn't have to solve that problem. They're already going to have to solve something in their life. There's going to be something. Wouldn't it be nice for them not to have to solve your nonsense too? In the same way you might feel bitter of like, why do I have to deal with the stuff from my grandparents and my parents and whomever it is, whomever in your lineage has passed down their generational stuff to you. You can either choose to cry about it and be the victim and then make a victim out of somebody else that's completely innocent. However fair that is kind of irrelevant. Or you can choose to confront your demons, to forgive, to heal, to clarify and kind of soothe the wounds of the past and move forward and give your kid, your family, a chance to move forward without that, without the burdens. Think about how much more that they can accomplish in their life if they're not being weighed down by other people's stuff. And again, they're going to have to face their own things. I think that's a really powerful gift. And then being intentional around that, you start asking, what are the things that you need to be as successful as possible? As I mentioned before, I've been very intentional about the relationships I was cultivating 5 years ago. I look at myself over the past 9 months and I count my lucky stars and I thank God that I chose the people I chose. I was very diligent about thinking about what values these people espoused, from things like, are they the kind of people that are going to show me empathy and kindness when I have a kid? What kind of grace are they going to show? Because the same thing I would want to do for somebody else is if they have a kid and they're going through a rough time, how can I show them kindness and grace and empathy? I'm so glad that those were the places that I placed my bets, but not just place my bets, like you have to nurture and work on those relationships, not just once, not just twice, just have a couple conversations and that be that. It was steady, consistent relationships over time that when I've had my roller coaster days and I needed help over the past, especially over the past, like I said, 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks now, I had people that were ready to just help lift me back up and hold the space for me to like get my head straight or remind me like, hey, I'm doing a pretty good job or whatever it was that I needed to just weather the storm a little bit. And it's not that they all solved all my problems. It was just more they prevented me from really allowing myself to go way off the deep end. They helped me steer the ship back on course so that I didn't have to spend a bunch of time just trying to reclaim my path. That more than anything is that allowing your falls to not be so far, man, that's really helped me. And I've learned how to celebrate when bad things don't happen because of that, because I could realize, like, oh, in my past, this would have knocked me out for another 2, 3 months going off on some wild goose chase for whatever. Oh, well, instead, I had great relationships around me to just have a simple conversation, got some clarity, and then got back on track. Um, those are the big things. Being very thoughtful and mindful about the relationships you're bringing into your life and how you're organizing your day to day. And the other side of it is just like making space for the fact that this was going to happen. I didn't know how demanding this role would be. Man, I thought I had it figured out, and I definitely didn't. Again, empathy and shout out to all the moms out there and stay at home dads or whatever you want to, whatever titles you want to call yourself, because it is demanding and it and it tests you and it exposes I think it really exposes all of your flaws in ways that you didn't even know that they were there. Um, and again, those are opportunities where I think if you embrace it properly, it's also what will allow you to become a better person. You'll be more thoughtful, more mindful, more considerate, and I know for myself, I just think longer term about every decision I'm making and how it's not only going to affect me, but the other people around me. So, yeah, I think I've kind of come close to the end of my ranting thoughts today. For one, I want to give a shout out to all the people that have been so loving and supporting of me throughout this whole venture of parenthood. People that have been so loving and caring for not only to me, but especially towards my wife. Um, my big thank you to my wife as well. Like I could not have chosen a better partner to walk through this path of life with. I'm so deeply impressed with how she's handled herself. Um, Talk about somebody really growing into a better version of themselves through the pressure cooker of the career challenges and navigating that, and then also like stepping up massively as a mother. I thought I knew what love was, and then I watched her go through the past. I mean, also her pregnancy too. Like witnessing her, I've learned how to love her on a whole new level. Not just like physically, and like this is like a deeper. I'm still struggling to put into words, quite frankly, and that's usually tough for me. So, or that's not common for me. So, anyway, I am ranting. I've got a little baby snoring in my arms right now. It only took her, 15, 20 minutes for her to chill out. But I'll leave you guys with the thoughts of just be intentional. Think about where you're going with your life. Be intentional about the people that you're bringing into your life, how you're holding space, the time you're making for yourself. And I'm looking forward to having this renewed, invigorated approach to the podcast. I'm excited to get back into having some conversations with people as well. Um, and looking forward to just sharing and just holding space for some people that I love. So, thank you for sharing your time and your energy with me today. And as always, until next time, I remind you to love everybody.